Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is Serena, your today's host for the Bespoke webinar. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome you all to this Bespoke webinar, Brand Protection and Supply Chain Solutions, powered by our exclusive partner, Apirasol. Thank you all for joining this virtual meeting, and I hope every one of you enjoying their best health. So we would like to thank all of our expert speakers, panelists, delegate attendees, and our exclusive partner for this webinar, Apirasol. Apirasol helps brand owners and enforcement authorities to map and disrupt illicit trade. Apirasol's supply chain suite combines shipment and open source intelligence, uncovering illicit supply chains from producer to importers, distributors, and retailers. You are definitely going to know more about Apirasol in the program ahead. So the event organized by PGS 7 reputation among delegates and suppliers as a must-attend event. And I hope that the highly focused business development opportunities through the cutting-edge conference program and the numerous networking opportunities will all contribute to a successful and enjoyable event for you. So this will be a 3 hours webinar of 4 keynote presentations, a short 15 minutes break, and a panel discussion at the end. So let's start by welcoming our keynote presenters. I would like to introduce you all to our speaker lineup for today. That includes Axel Hein. He is a managing director from Apirasol. And then we have Anubhav Jain, global brand relations manager at Amazon. Harshit Singla, legal counsel intellectual property rights at Honda. Then we have Alex Popa, Associate Director Blockchain for Supply Chain Excellence from MSD. Then we had Jeff Moore. He is a Chief Product Security Officer at Draeger Medical. Then we have Sophie Mole. She is Senior Manager Healthcare from GS1. Then we have Nuno Martins de Silveira Teodoro, Cyber Security and Privacy Officer at Huawei. So that's it for the speaker lineup. I hope we will learn new ideas from each other, which we could adopt to further improve our work in this important area. So let's start with our opening presenter. And our opening presenter for today's webinar is Axel Hein. He is with us. So Axel Hein, who is working as a managing director at Apirasol, he's having almost 15 years plus experience, and he's working with Apirasol since January 2010. So he's going to speak on supply chain intelligence for brand protection using public trade data and OSINT to map illicit trade and create Seizures. So let's welcome Axel. Hi, Axel, how are you?
Hi, Serena. Thanks a lot for the introduction. Welcome everybody to this webinar with so many exciting speakers. I'm going to share my screen and just ask you, Serena, to confirm that it looks well, that you see some beautiful containers in different colors.
Yeah, I
Perfect.
can see that.
So let's start with the first presentation.
Okay.
My name is Axel Hein. I'm based in Germany. We are Apirasol. We're a rather small consulting company, 10 people distributed all around the world, developing solutions to map illicit trade using public data and open source intelligence. We basically do something that is, we combine two types of intelligence. We combine open source intelligence, which means anything you can find online linked to illicit trade. It could be a company registration, it could be a video, it could be the social media profile from somebody. So anything that helps us understand that what are the real activities of an entity we are monitoring. And we combine that with customs data. It's very important to put these two pieces of intelligence together. And combined, we try to map an entire supply chain. And this methodology is very important because, you know, when you're looking at customs data, of course, counterfeiters, parallel traders, they are trying to hide from you. So we ask ourselves the following question. In your bill of lading, you counterfeiter, you're declaring personal items, or you're declaring toys, something that has very low customs duty like plastic items. But I can see that your social media footprint, or I can see that your trading partner, let's say your supplier on the other side of the supply chain, has this type of product. So obviously you're misdeclaring whatever you're importing or exporting. This is our work every week. We look at customs data and we start asking, what is wrong here? They're trying to hide. They are either always claiming that they import personal items or toys, or if you look at Jebel Ali in the United Arab Emirates, there is incredible amount of furniture exports. And of course, it's not really furniture they're trying to hide. So we look at customs data in a very structured manner with software. I'm going to show you examples later. And we ask ourselves, hey, obviously, this is not some private import or export. There is some economic, organized, illicit activity here. We could ask ourselves also, hey, it's not just brake pads or airbags that are unbranded and generic. We know that the people that receive these products from you are actually having branded products. So looking at open source intelligence like this, looking at videos, looking at company registrations, looking at the trademarks that some entities try to register, helps us scrutinize public data we see in different customs data sets. So these are quick examples of open source intelligence we collect to try to understand and give a meaning to customs data. But let's talk about customs data that is public. There are 33 or 34 countries around the world that make customs data public by law, with different levels of detail. Let's click on India, for example. This is our website. You can access this map. It's interactive and it can tell you what countries make customs data public, what fields are public data, what modes of transport are public data. There are countries like India where the data is very complete. It's very useful for investigations. It doesn't mean that it's accurate and it's real. Of course, people are misdeclaring what they actually ship or import, but the fact that there's 3 modes of transport that are public data in India, the fact that you can even see in India what is called the IEC number or a code that directly points you to a real company is a very good starting point for an investigation. The same happens with Russian data, public data, very complete, with Ukrainian data, with Vietnamese data, also very complete data sets for investigations. Then there's other countries that have public data, but with some limitations. For example, the US. In the US, only sea freight is public data. So only large containers and large volumes of transport are public data. But also there's other limitations with US data, is that the product descriptions that become public are not very, very complete. You will not always find a trademark name or a product model in US data, which you would be able to see with many other countries. So for example, if I'm interested in monitoring the route India to US, I prefer to look at an Indian export. This has much more visibility, many more details. An Indian export to the US is more precise than an American import from India. With the same transaction, much more visibility, many more details with Indian data, with Russian data, even some African countries, South American countries, Paraguay, very interesting data set because although Paraguay is a rather small economy, Paraguay serves as a door of entry for products coming from Asia and then going to Brazil or to Argentina, so larger economies. Paraguay helps you to understand what is happening there. For example, with the Triple Frontier in South America, a very big hotspot for illicit trade. Other interesting stories with Ukraine and the Black Sea has been a hotspot for the entry of products that then go to Eastern Europe and trade in the Black Sea. So there's many ways to identify suspicious trade. Not every country makes customs data public, but there's tricks to monitor the countries that have no public data. So let's take, for example, Germany, no public data, but if a company in Pakistan trades with a company in Germany, both company names become visible. And the same with the other 33 countries that have public data. If they trade with Germany, I will be able to see all the importers in Germany and analyze them through the other countries. So what do we do at Epidesol? We take these very large data sets from these 33 countries. We take open source intelligence, which could be social media, images, company registrations, and we put it together and have different tools to analyze suspicious trade. One of the tools is looking at the route used to transport product. So very simple concept here. This route marked in green is trusted because it's our partner, and this is just an example, our partner Brembo, the Italian brake pad producer, exporting from China to Peru. So of course, these are genuine products. I don't need to look at this in further detail. The same happens with this route. The importer is a trusted company, is our client or a partner company, and we don't need to look at this further in detail. Now, there's other routes that are suspicious, and I'm not saying this is 100% counterfeit. What I'm saying is we have a conversation with the brand owner and we say, hey, do you export from from Spain to Peru? Or we see that in these containers, your brand and competitor brands are mixed together. Would that be normal for this route? We see that this container has bulk products without packaging. Would that be normal for your brand? And based on that discussion, we would suggest further investigations like test purchases, covert inquiries, or some internal checks with experts within that company. This analysis looks at the routes themselves. So a route makes something more trusted or more suspicious. There's other ways to look at illicit trade from an open source intelligence perspective, looking at the relationships between entities. So, for example, this entity in pink, Hayasi Group, they are a distillery in Armenia that was a target that was suspicious for us. And that entity also is linked to a PEP, so a politically exposed person, a minister of security in Armenia, and they are producing different products, different whiskeys that are illicit because they are geographical indication infringements. They claim to be Scottish when they aren't. And those products are exported to someone in Russia, Delta Club, and finally to retailers, to supermarkets, are offering those products for sale. This approach tries to map all the stages of the supply chain, from production to importer to a retailer to a supermarket, by putting together open source intelligence. So we're not making any visits with this tool. We're just putting together customs data, phone numbers, websites, images, and try to put all the puzzle pieces together. Now, when you work with customs data and you do what we call supply chain intelligence, there's massive volumes of data. It's very easy to get lost, and no brand owner has time to review all exports of their brands. But what you can do with our help is look at the biggest fishes, look at the top exporters, for example, of BMW spare parts, and very quickly say, hey, let's look at the top 10, but the green ones are trusted because they are themselves BMW or a partner from BMW. So let's not put time on that. Let's look at number 7. We are hiding this because this is a real project with BMW. Let's look at number 7. Let's do open source intelligence. Who are the owners of the company? What are they posting online? And then possibly suggest further investigations to the brand owner. So very important with shipments intelligence is to have a way to look at the largest fishes and don't get lost on 200, 300. So any big brand will have 200 to 300 different exporters and 200, 300 importers to look at. It's very easy to get lost in data. We tried to look at the largest fishes. Now, another thing that you can do with open source intelligence and customs data is to identify suspicious trends, suspicious patterns that you might have missed, because you might say, my problem with counterfeits or with product diversion is in India, for example, because I had lots of seizures with Indian customs. Now, this tool is trying to give you an academic approach and say, hey, yes, you have a problem in India, but we see, for example, that in the US, I'm just saying an example, there's your brand Mail had a trend. This green arrow shows a trend where there's less imports of your brand and there's more imports, this red line, more imports of generic unbranded mustard. So it's like saying, hey, you are Nike and there's less imports of Nike in Pakistan, let's say, but there's more imports of generic unbranded sneakers. Could that be maybe an indication that unbranded fakes are going to that market? And then put your resources there. So let's say this is a data approach to choosing in what countries you can spend your budgets for physical investigations. One starting point when we start working with a new brand and we know nothing about, let's say, Hyundai, the first thing I would like to do is to try to see who are the historic infringers that got products seized for that brand, but also competitor automotive brands in China. And this is public data. So not many people know this, but Chinese seizures of products, containers that try to leave China and they get stopped in China, they become public data. It's not exactly the seizure, but the administrative penalty becomes public. The company name, the infringer in China, becomes public. Everything is published in Chinese by the local Chinese customs authorities. And we crawl it, so we capture it with software, we translate it, because then these massive data sets, we want to be able to play and say, hey, let's open a report for Hyundai. Let's do it right now. I want to see the top Chinese companies that try to export Hyundai fakes and got their products seized. I want to see also the other brands that were typically mixed in that container. And I want to see the ports that they were using. So here we have a very large portion where Jinhua Customs was involved. Maybe with another brand, it would be Yiwu. Probably if we're looking at textiles, fakes, you would see Yiwu with a bigger portion. But what do I do with this one? Can I start saying, hey, this Yiwu Jubao import-export company, I want to see whether they are exporting something, because they have a container seized, but they are not taking away their export license. They keep on exporting. My job is to tell Hyundai or another automotive brand, hey, there's a new shipment now from this company, and we know that they're involved in fakes, even when they are claiming that they are exporting personal items or water or toys. We know that they're in the automotive industry. So this is the trick with looking at Chinese seizures data. It tells me that these companies are actually in the automotive, in the pharmaceutical, in the food industry, even though when in bills of ladings, they claim to do something that is not suspicious. Let's go back to the map that I presented earlier. The question that I always get when I show this map is, hey, what happens with China? Do they have public export data? No, they don't have it. So there is public data about the seizures that try to leave China, but there is no public export data published by China on a level that will let you run an investigation. There is some data out there, but it's not really useful. It's very limited. It's not very useful for investigation. So what happens? How do we monitor Chinese exports if we don't have Chinese public data? Well, as you already saw, one way is to look at these 33 countries that trade with China, and we do what is called mirroring that data and looking at when they trade with a Chinese exporter. So that's one way. There's other ways to understand Chinese exports when a Chinese company exports through CIS countries via train and then further to Eastern Europe. That transit becomes public data. When a Chinese company exports via sea freight, more in the south, and then going through Egypt in the Suez Channel, then further to Europe, let's say further to Spain, to France, that shipment crossing the Suez Channel in Egypt becomes also public data. So there are some ways to understand what the Chinese exporters are doing. It's not that there's absolute obscurity with Chinese. There's also another trick that is not relying on customs data, but relying on what we call Alibaba transactions data. If you're a brand owner, I'm sure you have already very good solutions to do your online monitoring and take down products, infringing products in Alibaba. I'm not talking about the listings, the Alibaba listings. I'm talking about the transaction, whether a product put for sale in Alibaba is really sold to a country like UAE that has no public customs data. So Alibaba discloses the destination country or the country of the buyer of any product that is bought through the Alibaba platform. So very interesting information. It's a gold mine for investigators. It's free out there. You can do it manually. You can start looking at listings and look at the transactions and look at the Chinese companies that were trading with Germany, with Arab Emirates. Now we do it in a very structured approach automatically because I want to play and I want to say, hey, I want to see all Chinese companies that are in the business of gaming controllers like PlayStation controllers or Nintendo controllers and sold something to companies or to people in the UAE in the last 4 weeks. And based on that, I want to take those names and probably give a warning to the brand owner, brand protection team in Middle East, or create a warning for customs authorities. So tricks to try to understand trade when there is no public customs data are shown here. Last part of this presentation looks a little bit about how do you manage such a project. We have web interfaces where we keep track of all the suggestions for investigations and what is the status. Did you do that test purchase, what happened with that covered inquiry, etc. It's very important because usually these projects have many participants from a brand owner company, and each of them is updating and saying, yeah, I finished my investigation, no. And when they do that, it's very useful to have this kind of metrics that are updated automatically, and you can see how many suggestions for investigations were done to the different teams and how many were executed and not. Last part of the presentation is simply about showing you my contact details, because if you're a brand owner and you would like to have a very quick demo to say, hey, I have this brand, Apple iPhone, I want to see that route map I was showing before. I want to see something like this very quickly, look at my own supply chain, the green ones, and other suspicious supply chains. We'll prepare that absolutely for free, very quickly, in very few days. So feel free to drop me an email if you're a brand owner, mention your brand, because you might have many brands and you want to pick one that is of particular interest. And we'll prepare that demo for you. We'll arrange a call to explain you the whole details and some key players that might be suspicious. So thanks a lot for listening. I'm not sure if there's time for Q&A, but glad to take any questions.
Okay, so hi, Axel. Thank you so much for your perceptive presentation. It was really very informative, and thank you so much for participating so effectively. We are delighted for the time you have taken out and give this presentation. And I'll ask the audience that if they are having any question, they can ask you in the chat or in the QA session. And Axel is here to answer all of your queries. So with this, we will be moving forward to our next presentation, which will be with Harshit Singla and Anubhav Jain. It's a combined presentation. And yes, so Anubhav Jain, Global Brand Relations Manager at Amazon, and joined by Harshit Singla, Legal Counsel Intellectual Property Rights at Honda. So Anubhav Jain has a 19 plus years of proven thought leadership in intelligence analysis and fraud investigations, legal ethics and compliance, litigation, channel and supply chain investigations, anti-counterfeit and IPR investigations, related work streams. And he's responsible for APAC and Middle East region within global brand protection team. And with him, we have Harshit Singla. He's experienced in counsel, in-house counsel, skilled in contracts, legal writing, management, and document drafting, and criminal and civil procedure, intellectual property, and brand protection, pro bono legal consultancy for underprivileged. So Anubhav will be discussing tools available to brands to protect their intellectual property on online marketplace. And Harshit will be discussing about brands' perspectives and experiences, strategies brands adopt to protect their IP online and offline respectively. So with this, we will welcome Anubhav and Harshit. So Anubhav is with us. Okay, so hi Anubhav, how are you?
Hey, thank you very much for inviting me here. I'm doing good, and I hope everyone is safe.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and we are honored to have you as a keynote speaker. So Anubhav, you can start your presentation after sharing your screen.
Indeed. Thank you very much. I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, so good luck. Stage is all yours now.
Thank you. Okay, I'll quickly talk about how brands can protect their intellectual property in the context of online marketplaces, and with special reference to Amazon. What specific tools do we have for ensuring that brands are able to effectively protect their IP? How do we work closely with large, medium, and small enterprises, and what tools are made available to them to protect their IP and also to protect themselves against the unfair competition that they're receiving from bad actors? At the outset, I must say that Amazon strives to be Earth's most customer-centric company. where people can find virtually everything they want to buy. As a customer-focused company, we work hard to maintain and earn the customer trust. That means making sure that customers are able to uh, uh, choose from authentic and safe products when they shop on our marketplace. And we are committed to give the best shopping experience to our customers. We have learned over time that as we work closely with brands, with intellectual property owners, that gives a better customer experience to the customers because it leads to collaboration and better and more accurate presentation of the brands on Amazon. I'll talk about the tools that are being made available to the brands, but before that, let me talk about a new and exciting program that Amazon started about more than a year back. That is Counterfeit Crimes Unit. Um, this unit is basically dedicated to pursuing bad actors globally and partnering with law enforcement, with brands to file civil and criminal litigations against the bad actors. CCU is dedicated to prosecuting bad actors that violate the law and also violate Amazon's policies by offering counterfeit products in our marketplaces. So this is a team of multi-disciplinary former federal prosecutors, experienced investigators, data analysts, etc., who are basically experts in investigating bad actors. And our first priority continues to be to remain proactive in blocking the suspicious listings before it makes to our stores. However, if a bad actor is still able to evade our systems and list a counterfeit in violation of our policies, the CCU will bring in additional resources in holding these bad actors accountable in the offline world. The CCU enables Amazon to pursue civil litigations also against the bad actors and also work with brands in joint or independent investigations and law enforcement referrals for criminal investigation. So feel free to reach out to us in case you believe that you can partner with us against significant syndicates operating in the online world. Let me talk slightly more in detail about what we have done so far in relation to these offline investigations and joint litigations. We have actually done it successfully with many brands across the world, including most recently with Vera Bradley, Valentino, etc. To partner with us in the Counterfeit Crimes Unit initiative, we would like to make sure that the brands have conducted test purchases, and therefore they have sufficient background information and evidence against the bad actors. So let me now talk about the innovative tools that we have made available to intellectual property owners and their representatives in order to protect their IP. The first one is Amazon Brand Registry. Now, as most of you are already aware that Amazon has made available a public notice and takedown form that can be used by any brand, any intellectual property owner, or even a customer to report any instances of infringement to Amazon. But in addition to that, what we have done, we've gone to the next level and launched a few years back this pioneering service called Brand Registry. It's a free service to help brands protect their IP on the Amazon marketplace. This tool gives IP owners tremendous control over the product display pages that use their brand names. And because of this, customers are more likely to see correct information associated with their brands on the PDP. There are more tools. I'll talk in detail about them in the subsequent slides, but let me quickly talk about the scale at which we protect the brands. There are more than 500,000 brands all over the world which are enrolled in Amazon Brand Registry. We get very excited about Brand Registry as a tool and as a free service to the brands. And this is because we are seeing customers are increasingly becoming aware and brands are increasingly getting benefit by using Brand Registry. For every one notice of infringement that the brands report to us, more than 100 suspect listings are removed by us proactively. That just shows how proactive we are in removing even the suspect listings. Our global investigators work 24/7 to remove counterfeits across the potential, the world, acting on the notices of potential infringements. Let me talk about automated protections, or ABP in short. What is ABP and how does it work? As the name suggests, ABP tool or those protections basically identifies and removes suspected infringements on its own without the need of the brand to report it to us. It is basically based on machine learning. As an example, once the intellectual property owner provides us the information about their registered trademarks, copyrights, and design rights, etc., our ABP system proactively removes suspected infringements on its own without the need for the IP owner to proactively report it. So that's quickly about the ABP. Now let me talk about report a violation. Now, what is report a violation and how does this system work? This is a process, a tool basically that is available to the brand owners to report instances of violation. We have shown here on the screen the interface of the RAV tool. What it basically does is that it provides for a simple search mechanism which the brands can use to locate the infringement. After the brand is able to log into the Amazon Brand Registry, the tool is made available to the IP owners or their registered agents. It allows the brands and their agents to conduct global search in the search box here to identify infringing products on Amazon stores. Therefore, even if, for example, the agent or the brand is based in one country, they can do a global search without the need to navigate to different marketplaces across the world. And then they can report all of the infringing listings together without the need to individually report each of them. Bulk ASIN submission is also a feature that they can utilize here. And then this RAV tool also has got a submission history page, which lists all the complaints and report made by the brand in the past 6 months. Let me talk about Amazon Project Zero, which is one of the most critical tools used by the brands, helping to drive counterfeits to zero. Basically, for the first time, what we have done is that we have given intellectual property owners this power to remove counterfeits from our marketplaces themselves without the need to report it to us and without for us to do a prior investigation. Brands are getting this unprecedented power to remove listings because we trust them. All listings, those are removed using Project Zero are later checked by us and incorporated into our machine learning tools. This is an interface of how the Project Zero works. As you can see here, there is a way to provide information into different boxes here. And then after the brand clicks on remove counterfeit here on the bottom of the screen, they are able to remove the infringing listing themselves in almost no time. Let me quickly talk about another tool that is available to the brand owners called transparency. This transparency system is basically a retailer agnostic item level tracing service, which basically helps a brand to proactively identify and prevent counterfeits from reaching our customers. It basically uses a 2D or a two-dimensional data matrix code tied to each unit of a product. These codes are then scanned before the products are listed on the marketplace and before these are shipped to our customers. So basically what it does is that it ensures that whatever enters or leaves the facilitation center is authentic. Over 7,500 brands and more than 25,000 products are already enrolled in transparency now, which has basically prevented more than 400,000 counterfeits getting sold on Amazon. I'll talk about, sorry for the background noise, my dog is a little more alert today. I can quickly talk about the investments in brand protection. In 2020, and this is the last slide of my presentation today before I hand over to Harshit. Basically, what we are doing is we are investing a lot of resources into brand protection, and also we closely work with the intellectual property owners and their agents to ensure that their IP is protected. In 2020, we have prevented more than 6 million suspected bad actor accounts from entering our stores basis using these tools. Secondly, we have blocked more than 10 billion suspected bad listings from being published in our marketplaces. Further, over 99.9% of the pages viewed by our customers never had a counterfeit complaint. Just goes to show how proactively we are removing even suspect infringements. Finally, we have monitored more than 50 million pieces of feedback that we received from customers, right owners, regulators, etc. And we quickly identified and removed the bad listings using our proactive controls. We have also invested more than 700 million US dollars and employed more than 10,000 people in-house to fight fraud and abuse. In the end, I want to close by saying that we remain committed to protecting our customers, brands, and sellers from unfair competition being posed by bad actors. We welcome intellectual property owners, brands, their agents, representatives to join hands with us in our joint fight against counterfeiting and infringement. Thank you, and handing over now to Harshit.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you all are fine and safe at your homes. We have been dealing in, we all have been surviving through the multiple waves of COVID, and I'm glad that we all are here safe after this pandemic. And now I'm very thankful to Mr. Anubhav for telling us about the Amazon's tools and strategies to combat counterfeits. And believe me, guys, I've been the user of brand registry for around 2 years, and a very superior experience with the Amazon as compared to any other e-commerce platform available globally. They address the issue very spontaneously, and they are very prompt to provide the countermeasure of the counterfeits of your brand. Now, coming to my part, I will discuss more of about the brand's perspective towards the counterfeit, toward the fake products, and how we form the strategies to protect our brands online as well as offline. So while coming to brand's perspective, it's not only about the profits or making money every time. It's not about not only the customer retention. It is more of a relation between a customer and a brand. For example, I am an automobile manufacturer, and my customer has showed me a trust by investing savings, and a vehicle is a dream for any person. So if he has invested on a vehicle, he will be expecting reliability, assurance, timely service. And no brand would want that a counterfeit part which has been fitted to its customer's vehicle leave his customer stranded on a highway without any help. So it shatters the customer trust and faith in the brand altogether. So it's very important to up the counterfeits in the market, so that he can serve his customer more better. It's beyond the profit and the customer retention. It is like the gaining the customer's trust throughout. Like no other entity or criminal should free ride on the brand's reputation and trust and have access to the customer's doorstep and damage the brand and its image attained throughout the years of investing money into the market, investing money into the marketing materials globally. So coming to the next slide, uh, I'm very sure that all of us are aware why there is a need for enforcement, uh, because uh, be it any country, the market for counterfeits are growing day by day and year on year, and the amount of sale tax that nations loses due to the counterfeits ranges between the $17 billion to $90 billion, and that is just an approximate idea. The actual numbers, I think we all are aware that what is the actual size of the counterfeits. It constitutes around one third of our market space, and probably the targets are our customers only. And the money could have been used for the good purposes, like for the hospitals, for the roads and schools. However, they enjoy the tax haven and they loot the customer as well as the governments, and makes our economy very weaker. So if we talk about the Indian market, when we move to the next slide, for example, it is the estimated data of the Indian market that around 39,000 crores of revenue has been lost every year due to the counterfeits. And the major industries affected by them are tobacco industries, mobile phone industries, FMCGs, packaged goods, automobile company, computer hardware company, alcoholic beverages company. So these are around 7, 8 industries which are majorly impacted by the counterfeits. Because uh, if you can see also, tobacco and alcoholic beverages are the high tax items. So in order to steal the taxes, they keep themselves away from the books of the government as well as from the brand, and gain on the taxes as well as on the brand's reputation. And so to combat all these counterfeits, most of the brands have their own set strategies. Every organizations, according to their market, according to their consumer behaviors, according to their scalability, adopt their own anti-counterfeit practices. Uh, if I talk about my personal experience, when we move to the next slide, we will see that how, like, I've been doing the brand protection for the brands I've been worked throughout my career. So basically, before we jump to the strategies, so we will discuss like basic kinds of infringements which occurs. Like it can be counterfeiting, it can be piracy, it can be cyber squatting, it can be passing off. So basically, uh, due to the boom in the e-commerce market space and on the OTT platforms, uh, getting things are getting pirated very often. Like for example, all of us have might seen a movie in our life that is available on over the online platforms before it is actually released in the theaters. So then comes to the infringement. It can be trademark infringement, it can be design infringement, it can be patent infringement. So there are many basically different. It is different for every different industry and different brands. So to counter this, we have to first investigate the source of the counterfeits. Like what is the source, what is the market where they are operating, how they are manufacturing, how they are sourcing the goods, and how they are maintaining their supply chains. So all these things are investigated through either through the investigating agencies or through the open sources available to us or through the intelligence agencies, of course. So through these agencies, we first collect the information and calculate the scale of the counterfeiting agencies, like at what scale they are manufacturing. Are they locally selling the goods, or they have the global supply chain, and so on. Then comes to the enforcement part, as to how to take on the particular kind of infringement. So we can go to the civil route. We can, in some cases, like when we raid the marketplace, when we raid any retailer, when we raid any manufacturers, so we can go to the criminal enforcement routes as well, because in India specifically, criminal litigation takes n number of years to complete, and the person who is the culprit has to attend the every proceeding personally. So it becomes a good deterrent in order to combat the counterfeiting. Then of course comes the border enforcement, like almost every brand registered their intellectual property rights with the custom authorities, and whenever they come across any kind of counterfeit product, they notify the brand, and then the appropriate action or measure can be taken. So in the next slide, we will see the uh, scale of seizures, which I think my presentation is not visible. Is it visible to everyone?
No, Harshit, we cannot see your slides. So, Anubhav, can you please start the slides again?
I think there is a technical issue.
Yes.
Yeah, wait, let me fix this for you,
Okay, sure. No issues.
please. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm really sorry for the inconvenience. So when we in the last slide, when we talked about the counter uh, strategy strategies adopted by the brands. So now this the efforts can be seen in the terms of the size of the seizures, which the brands or the government have been able to make through these small efforts. Like on the next slide, when we see the seizure trends in the European region, so around 778 million of retail value of goods has been seized by the custom authorities through the custom enforcements, and 27 million of individual items has been seized from the retailers or from the manufacturers, and around 70,000 of goods has been seized by the EU customs alone. And when we talk about the US, so trend in the US is also very high in terms of seizures. So basically, US focuses on the majorly 7 priority trade issues, and intellectual property right is one of those 7 issues, fortunately. So uh, CPB in the US protects the intellectual property rights of the American businesses and safeguard them from the unfair competition and use for malicious intent while upholding American innovation and ingenuity. So CPB works with many partner government agencies and the trade community to mitigate the risk posed by the imports of such illicit goods. And in 2020 alone, um, 26,000 seizures have been made by the US government, and the value exceeded $1.3 billion. which is massive. And although we should be happy that such large amount of seizures are being done by the government, at the same time, we are very disappointed and very surprised that such amount of goods are floating in the market itself. So they should not be floating in the market at the very first place itself. So anyhow, we all professional are working to combat the counterfeits. And moving to the next slide, as elaborated by Mr. Anubhav. So online market monitoring becomes very important in the time of e-commerce. So uh, one thing where the sellers get the edge, that customer don't get to see the actual products in their hand. So chances become high that they are getting the counterfeit products. And many studies says that every third product over the online platform is counterfeit, but may not be the third, but at least in my practical experience, every fifth or sixth product is definitely a counterfeit product. So although due to the pressure of government, consumers, brands, online, sorry, e-commerce are adopting many strategies to combat the counterfeits. However, the size and scale of the e-com has been very growing, that it becomes very difficult for them to enforce the right. Further, they, as everyone are aware, they take the advantage of being only the mediator, as we talk in terms of the law. So they take the advantage of being the mediator, and most of the e-commerce platforms do not honestly or willfully uh, adopt the anti-counterfeiting measures. However, my experience with the Amazon has been very amazing. I have worked with Amazon with around 2-3 brands, including Hyundai and Honda. So Amazon provides a very good platform in the name of brand registry, where we can uh, take down the counterfeits from the very comfort of our office without zero human interaction. That is also mm, uh, one of a kind thing, because writing an email to the person and explaining all the things to him and then wait for his response becomes very hectic and doesn't really pay off. So Amazon's AI tools take care of this very perfectly, and I think most of us are already using brand registry tool of Amazon. So that's it from my side. If anybody has any question, then please we can discuss now, or even we can connect over the LinkedIn. And I would love to be connected to everybody present here. Thank you for being a good audience, and have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Harshit, for your wonderful presentation and for telling us about the strategies brands are adopting to protect their IP and online and offline. So, and Anubhav, thank you so much for telling us about AVP and Amazon strategies to protect the brand. So, Anubhav, I have a question for you. Can you please tell us about the pros and cons of reactive enforcement versus proactive enforcement?
Right, and that's a great question. Active enforcement versus proactive enforcement. And there has been a debate for a long time about which one should the online marketplaces as well as the brands should adopt. Now, in our experience, while active enforcement, or in other words, reactive enforcement, is one of the ways to definitely protect the intellectual property, and that is something we call it a traditional model of protection, wherein the brand goes on Amazon brand registry and proactively identifies the infringing listings and report it to us, either through the report a violation tool or through the Project Zero. And then those infringing or suspected listings are taken down. What we have also realized in course of time is that we can definitely take advantage of technology to proactively identify potential infringements and remove those potential infringements on our own without the need for the brand to report it to us. And that is why Amazon invested substantial resources into creating programs and tools. We actually call them Amazon automated brand protection tools, or ABP tools, which basically is a suite of tools that we have created in-house with the help of experts in order to make sure that even potential suspected infringements are removed. And that actually is leading to massive tangible benefits to the benefit of the brands. The way we have heard the feedback from the brands, they have increasingly seen benefit of enrolling themselves into this ABP program, and therefore we intend to take it to the next level by continuing to talk to more brands and continue to collect more information about their intellectual property so that we can continue to innovate and make those automated tools even more robust as we move on. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that helps a lot. Thank you so much, Anubhav, and for your wonderful answer. And thank you so much to both of you for your stimulating presentation. And you guys have touched so many critical areas, which is a solid need of the hour. So I'll request the audience that if they are having any question, they can ask you in the chat or in the QA session. And Harshit and Anubhav are here to answer all the queries. So thank you so much for being here and adding value. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, with this, we are moving forward to our next presentation, and our next presenter is Alex Popa. And okay, so Alex is an associate director, blockchain for Supply Excellence from MSD, and he's having an experience of 10 plus years, and he's focused on technical operations and solutions delivery, infrastructure architecture and product management, agile transformation, consultancy, innovation, and strategy. And he will be speaking on fighting the fakes, anti-counterfeit supply chain solutions. So let's welcome Alex. And Alex, how are you?
Hey, thank you very much for the nice introduction, and happy to be here today with all of you. Thanks all for joining, and yeah, hopefully this will be a rich, full experience in terms of sharing a bit of knowledge.
So
and yeah, looking forward to dig into.
okay, so Alex, thank you so much for being here. We warmly welcome you at our event, and we're honored to have you as a keynote speaker. So you can start your presentation and you can share your screen as well.
So start my all right. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, I can see your presentation.
I'm getting a bit in between the screens now.
Okay, no problem.
Hold on.
Yes, I can see it properly now. So good luck. Stage is all yours now, Alex.
Thank you. So today I'm going to talk about how MSD is leveraging blockchain technology. More specifically, I'm going to show us case study on how exactly we are fighting the fakes using blockchain. Key takeaways, I'm going to do a small introduction into blockchain, not going to go too much into the technical details, but mostly focusing on how you can use the technology for business, and more specifically in the supply chain. As blockchain is a team sport, going to talk a bit about the industry, pharma industry collaboration efforts, which are a paradigm shift in today's world. And then going to dig a bit into the problem statement of in the pharma supply chain ecosystem when it comes to counterfeit materials and counterfeit drugs, and then going to give you an introduction on how we are addressing these pain points. In the end, hopefully we will have some time. I'm going to take a Q&A session. So no further ado, a bit about myself and what I'm doing. I am part of an organization within MSD called Connected Channel. We are part of the manufacturing MSD manufacturing division. We are an organization that is experimenting and developing blockchain capabilities at MSD to enable a continuous and reciprocal flow and friction-free flow of information with our trading partners, optimizing the flow for the product and enterprise metrics. So we are working applying blockchain in supply chain operation, and the vision is to digitally connect the plant to the patient in a number of use cases globally. To have a fully integrated digital highway that our supply chain can rely on. Like most of the concepts and ideas around us, the ideas that led to blockchain technology is not something new. If we go back all the way to ancient Athens, in the ancient world, philosophy was highly suspicious of one of its other achievements, which was democracy. So Socrates, which is considered the father of philosophy, of Greek philosophy, was very pessimistic when it came to democracy. He considered that election of a leader in the end becomes a popularity contest, and he advocated against democracy. He was advocating for centralized system of rule by a philosopher, dictator, king. By the other hand, fast forward to the Roman Republic, we had Cicero, who was a Republican and used to say that the soldier should bind to the citizen, meaning that the power should be in the hands of the citizen, distributed and not centralized. We see this rule of thoughts kind of everywhere. From, I just gave some simple examples on the state governance today, and also in the past. We have even today these disputes, but these disputes are also, if you think about it, in technology. So we have today Web 2.0, where, giving an example here, you have Facebook. Throughout its major stakeholder, Mark Zuckerberg controls the digital identity of around 2.8 billion people globally. On the other spectrum, on the decentralized side, we have the Bitcoin network, which throughout its underlying technology, the blockchain makes it possible the movement and exchange, freely exchange of around, today probably it's around 400 billion dollars worth of Bitcoins without any central authority governing this network. And the argument is that blockchain will eventually bring in the promises Web 3.0, which will be the next evolution of the internet, where you would have a decentralized internet. So the blockchain is definitely a fifth evolution of computing. The removal of authority from the database structure is one of the most important, one of the most powerful aspects of the technology that we can talk and have today. Now let's take a step backwards, and when we think about business, let's look on how the technology ultimately can be applied. Again, not going to get too much into the technical details. Mostly I'm trying to focus on how you apply it for business. So what I have here shown, it's a multi-party healthcare network. It's a supply chain network within simplified, obviously, on the abstract level. Normally in reality, as you all know here, we would have much more participants, But I think I'm trying here to capture the key participants within a pharma supply chain network. So how things are operating today. Every participant's a key to any trade, any movement of goods, it's a ledger. Now, this system has been around. The biggest argument between historians is even the first forms of written text that was found. So those were the plates of Sumer, 5,000 years ago old. The argument is that those are actually ledgers. So they were written, was invented with the single purpose of initially to record how trade was being done, how assets and goods was transferred from one party to another. Kind of the same principle we have it today. We just incremented over time. So now it got digitalized. Obviously, every participant, the problem with the system is that every participant has a copy of his own ledger. Each time if an assets or a good flows in and out of an organization, each participant updates its own ledger. Now this system is century old, is tried and tested and in popular usage. The problem with it is that it's inefficient. And why I say it's inefficient, again, it's a duplicated process. So each participant will need to do an effort to update their own ledgers. It's very expensive considering if I tied it to pharma or the fintech industry, there are internal functions within companies today that are spending up to 20% of their time just to making sure that they are compliant. And they are complying with external audits. We work in regulated industry. So if you translate this 20% of your time into money, that's a very expensive process. And it's also vulnerable if you think all these systems are subject to and can be subject to cyber threats and malicious intent. Now, let's bring blockchain to the picture. So bringing blockchain in, how things are happening now. All members share a common ledger. Your blockchain becomes a common ledger. The ledger is replicated at each participant throughout what we call peer-to-peer technologies. These are, and if there will need to be private transactions between a logistic distributor and a specific biopharma manufacturer, you want to hide these transactions or not disclose them between the other participants of the network. This can be done with what we call privacy services and private transactions. The benefits that blockchain brings is consensus. So within the created network, you get to choose who is validating and approving a transaction. Blockchain also brings the concept of provenance. So you would have an audit trail. You have an audit trail of who owned what asset at what time in its life cycle as that respective good is passing throughout the supply chain. It brings also the concept of immutability. So meaning you can't tamper transactions, you can't revert them. And once a transaction is executed in the blockchain, it cannot be reverted in theory. And then last but not least, there's the concept of finality. So meaning my blockchain ledger becomes the one system of truth. If disputes may arise, it's very easy to resolve these disputes because blockchain gives us the property of transaction settlement and transaction reconciliation, having your blockchain as an ultimate source of truth. Obviously, it's a blockchain is a team sport. We like to call it. It doesn't bring you any benefit if you're doing it in isolation. So typically, you need to build an ecosystem that would join this digital highway that you are creating in order to take the biggest benefits out of it. Couple of years ago, what was missing to push the technology mainstream was interoperability between partners and between different organizations doing business. Now things are changing, and lately, if you look into the pharma industry, it's an unprecedented wave of collaboration. So one example to that, I can just give it to you. The pharma companies realize that joining forces together can be beneficial for everybody, can be beneficial for the companies itself, can be beneficial for the patients, can be beneficial for the science. One example is the collaboration between pharma companies when putting the vaccine COVID on the market, right? You managed to do that just because collaboration was possible, and they collaborated in relatively 6 months. You put in a vaccine that in theory would take up to 10 years, 15 years to put on the market. Is the same on now when it comes to blockchain. So we have different organization and different collaboration efforts that are advancing technology as well. So one of these in the blockchain space, it's Pharma Ledger. So here there are 12 major pharma companies are now working together, hospitals, universities, patient organization, and tech companies building together a blockchain ecosystem. This is a program backed by European Union. It's one of the biggest initiatives in the industry. Why? So what's the goal of Pharma Ledger? The goal is to empower the patient, increase the digital trust among healthcare stakeholders, support medicine, drug traceability and data privacy, and build this new culture of collaboration. What we are doing, we are building platforms throughout reference use cases in supply chain, clinical trials, health data that will serve gender stress within the industry, enabling also the early adopters. So one of the use cases also in Pharma Ledger, but today I'm going to talk about a different market that we scale. I'm going to specifically show you how it's working or how we are fighting the fakes. Is also an area of what we call security and traceability. So leveraging blockchain to fight the fakes and track and trace purposes within the supply chain. So I think my colleagues before me from Amazon talked a bit the challenges with counterfeit and fake material entering the market throughout different entering throughout the supply chains. The same problem is also, you can find it in pharma industry. We found out 2-3 years ago after a study was conducted that one of the most counterfeited goods in the world is not electronics, is not luxury brands. One of the most counterfeited goods today in the world is pharmaceutical products and pharmaceutical materials. And this is increasing year over year. It's putting the patient safety at risk. It's creating loss of revenue and loss of confidence in companies' brand and products. On top of this, we need to think that the management of recalls is also a very complex operation. So a couple of supporting facts from the industry. Just want to mention in Europe, and in Europe, it's one of the less counterfeit issues, but still it's estimated that around 27 billion of revenue is lost every year due to counterfeit. The World Health Organization estimates that 1 out of 3 medicines sold worldwide are illegitimate. This does not include only the fake, but also, for example, doctors might miss how they prescribe this medicine to the patients, or they prescribe the wrong medicine, or sometimes the medicine gets expired with expiry dates and they get consumed. It's a big issue. On top of that, especially if you look in the past years, the e-commerce became a gateway for counterfeit, spreading at the rate of 20% per year. Imagine how many online pharmacies you have today, which is very hard to control, is very hard to regulate. Those are a big gateway for having counterfeit pharma products into a market. Looking into the US market alone, right, we also have to think about a lot of the medicine today is producing, it's offshored, the production of medicine. So looking just to the US market, 40% of the finished drugs there are made outside of the country. And recently, the regulatory authorities, European Union, all over the world, is enforcing legislation that enforce the product traceability. So one of that example is Drug Supply Chain Security Act that mandates in US that by 2023, all prescription drugs should be traced. So how our initiative actually started? What was the catalyst besides all these facts? In 2019, after a series of reports emerged as illegal HPV, so this is G9 vaccines produced by MSD, came in mid 2019 about products being detected, fake products, HPV vaccines being detected as counterfeit in Hong Kong. So we saw this as a big question mark, how we can fight it. And blockchain was a candidate, is a solution candidate, how we can put a stop to this. We work closely there with Zurich Pharma, which is our biggest distributor in the AP region, and with the Hong Kong local market. And we build a solution that addresses illegitimate G9 vaccines. Ultimately, how the solution works. So it was one of the first use cases where we actually were able to materialize and build our vision of connecting the plan to the patient. But first, we had the challenge there, because when you talk about supply chains and technology and digitalizing, there is something what is called the last mile problem, meaning you can digitalize and track a product, but in the same time, you still have offline processes and the physical products that you need to merge together. So you need to close these two gaps between your digital world and the offline world. The problem that we had, we could not do that in an easy manner because the market was not serialized. So then we did something what we call voluntary serialization of the market. In most of the markets in AP are not serialized, but we serialize Hong Kong market with the help of our serialization team. So all G9 packs for the Hong Kong market are now serialized at the pack site, enabling us to have the 2D matrix barcode printed on the packs to become the digital key to every unique pack. And then immediately this will pair and will give you an image of the GTIN, the batch number, the expiry date, using a mobile app, and scanning this 2D matrix code on the packs instantly allows the patient to verify the pack authenticity and end-to-end traceability on individual unit level, tracking as the goods are passing throughout the supply chain from MSD manufacturing site to the distributor Zurich Pharma, all the way to the clinics that finally are dispensing also the patient, the vaccines to the patient. Now, each event in the supply chain movement is timestamped. The completion of this important milestone allows for an instant and unparalleled levels of quality control and compliance to improve the patient safety, preventing heavily to have counterfeit medicine entering within our supply chain. If a product is flagged or when it's scanned is flagged as suspect, we also impose business intelligence dashboards that we monitor all the scans. The events are detected by the distributor, by the local human health team, and by our global security. And the dashboard also provides information about the milestone as the products went through, reducing the effort lead to conduct an investigation what we estimated from 3 weeks to almost 2 seconds. So leading to an almost costless verification of fake, of what can be flagged as potential fake products. What we are going to do next, obviously, we are going to work on what we call a second layer of authentication, meaning that using specific printing technology, we will add a second layer of security, making sure that the 2D barcodes that are printed on the packs would be authentic barcode. Is the same as you would think today about money. So if you put your hand in the pocket, if I put my hand in the pocket, I can bring up 10 Swiss franc bill, you would have additional layers of security. And it's the same principle that we are trying to apply for our medicine. So not giving just one layer, blocks in authenticity, but also making sure that the pack itself and the 2D barcode printed on the pack, it's authentic. So this is, we call it a digital fingerprinting technology. This is coming next as an additional security layer. And to wrap things up, just wanted to bring to all attention that are interested in blockchain, that blockchain is still in exploratory in healthcare. We had a lot of lessons learned in the past 2 years. We need to shift, and everybody, when you think about blockchain, you need to, and innovative technologies, new technologies, you have to shift from a need to hear more to a need to have. So to actually start experimenting, start piloting, trying things out. Don't rely just on theory. Pilots are essential, as I said. Education and engagement across stakeholders, it's also needed. Interoperability is key to fulfill the potential of the technology. This is one of the key components that probably is missing today to bring this technology mainstream. I think it's going there in the next 2-3 years, but right now you have to convince also all the ecosystem players and show them what would be in for it as benefits, because each participant within a blockchain network would have different interests and they will have different benefits, right? Engage also with the patient. So everything that we do starts with the patient in mind. So we early on, when we build the solutions, we engage with the patient groups, we check with patients, we probe different theories. In the end, the patients are our clients, and most of what we do it for our patients, for our clients, and having them in mind and making sure the solution we build are easy to use, can be used, and we make sure that we actually contribute to saving and improving lives according to the company mission. Not sure if we still have time to take a short Q&A.
Okay, so Alex, thank you so much for your presentation, and I'll ask the audience that if they are having any question, they can ask in the chat or in the QA session, and Alex is here to answer all of our questions. So Alex, we do have received one question, which is, can you please tell us something about the cold supply chain traceability?
Sorry, about?
Cold supply chain traceability.
Cold chain traceability. We are working also on use cases on that aspect. When you talk about cold chain traceability, mostly things are getting slightly more complicated, because in the first phase you are relying on what we call blockchain oracles. So the information that you store on your blockchain will still need to come from a third-party system today. Okay. The ultimate promise is that in the future with IoT, the sensors that are recording the temperature within cold chain would record this information directly into the blockchain, and that's where we are going. For the moment, most of the use cases, and I'm not talking just specifically to MSD, industry-wise, obviously this is still a challenge because we don't have it today. In order to have IoT systems, IoT sensors directly registering the information in the blockchain, you need to register those IoT sensors specifically and give them an identifier. So just you make sure that the sensor that is registering is an authentic sensor as well. And you, by this, you also make sure you ensure the integrity of your blockchain. The mitigation today, until you'll get to that step, is to use these blockchain oracles. So you get the information throughout the current systems that are recording this. And for cold chain, you can register it in a blockchain. So it's a mitigation, it's a middle mitigation till the IoT space will be ready for a full blockchain integration, which would bring more complexity.
Okay, good. So thank you so much. And can you please tell us again about the cloud-based security?
Cloud-based security in what aspect?
In like in supply chain and in healthcare sector?
Is this tied to blockchain? There are different ways how, if this is time, I'm just trying to understand the context of the question.
Okay, so we just want to know about the yes, cloud-based security and how it is helping and how is it available?
So if you tie it to blockchain, there are different ways how you can approach it. For private blockchains, private consortiums, obviously you would host your nodes in cloud. But where the industry is moving now, and I think it will move in the future, we are seeing it more moving into the public blockchain space, where obviously the cloud it's not a component anymore. You would be relying on the full decentralization, for example, of the Ethereum network, and all the challenges that are now tied to public blockchains, which means transaction throughput, transaction confidentiality, transaction price, because in public blockchains, whenever you have a transaction and you tokenize a transaction, it will involve a cost. So this is very expensive if you think about layer 1 blockchains, Ethereum. Now, all of this is solved with layer 2 blockchains, which one of the solutions, for example, it's Polygon, it's a layer 2 blockchain. It solves all the layer 1 problems. And still takes benefits of the layer 1 distributed and distribution and security, where the cloud is disappearing. So where the cloud security will be solved in the future, in the near future, as I see, is going to be a migration from actually deploying solutions in cloud or nodes in cloud, blockchain nodes in cloud. It's slowly going to move towards the public space as the technology is maturing and advancing. So this will be also like a paradigm shift thing from this perspective. The cloud will start to have a less and less of an importance.
Thank you, Alex. And we are having one question from our audience. Can the 2D codes protect against reuse of packaging?
That's a very good question. The way how we are going to address this, so there are two ways right now. If somebody copies your pack completely with the identical serial number, GTIN, etc. First, the full traceability is going to prevent it. So this will be layer 1. If for a normal pack that was manufactured by MSD, I have the first timestamp and the first registration in the blockchain as this pack has left the manufacturing site. If I get if somebody would duplicate the pack, obviously they will not do it as this good left MSD pack site. So this first milestone will be missing. Probably this would be copied in other points within the supply chain. So wherever there will be a verification, you would have the full traceability of an authentic product. Now, if this is a fake product that entered within your supply chain at a different point, you see that the previous logical points that you would need to have registered on the blockchain are not there. So this will be the first thing, how this will be addressed with blockchain, and it's addressed today. And then secondly is what I'm mentioning. We are working on top of this on this digital fingerprinting technology, where you make sure that the 2D barcode and the packs itself, it's an authentic pack printed by a Merck MSD printer. So this would be the layer 2 authenticity for the packs. I hope this this clarifies on the question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alex, for elaborating so nicely and for your informative presentation. I personally enjoyed it very much, and I hope everyone from the audience have enjoyed it. And thank you so much for your time and effort you took to share your experience and expertise with us. And we hope to see you again in our next conferences as well. So
thank you for the invite, and thank you all for joining. Happy to connect on LinkedIn. Also, you have my my email below. If anybody wants to connect, happy to get in touch.
yeah.
Have a great day and enjoy the rest of the event.
Okay, so thank you so much and stay safe. Have a nice day.
Same. Bye.
Okay, so bye. So, okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we will be having now a short break for 15 minutes so you all can refresh yourself, and let's connect again after 15 minutes, and we Okay, so hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is Serena again, and your today's host, and we are back after the break. And with us, we have Jeff Moore, and I will introduce you to Jeff, and then he will be starting his presentation. So Jeff is Chief Product Security Officer at Draeger Medical, and Jeff is a security professional with over 20 years of industry experience as a cybersecurity expert, with a background in driving companies to both security and compliance successes. And he has the proven ability to meet business functions with technology and security related compliance regulations by determining control weakness and recommending cost-effective solutions to reduce risk and improve business performance while ensuring a balanced IT risk, compliance and security. And the topic on which he will be sharing his expertise today is protecting your brand by understanding your third parties. So it would be a pleasure to hear this from Jeff. So let's welcome Jeff. Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here. It's an honor for us to have you as a keynote speaker. And Jeff, you can start your presentation now, and I can see your slides properly.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me, and hope everybody's having a good time. So when I started to try and figure out what I was going to present, I was going down the line of trying to understand the security of the third parties. And over the last 2 weeks, I've been testing a lot of products and looking at a lot of things to try and give me a better view of it. But what I was coming up with was there was a lot of noise happening out there about how the online fraud was getting bigger and bigger, but at the same time, the impact to the organizations. And of course, there's a combination of what I'm going to show you affects your organization, but also can help you see what's happening to your third parties and your suppliers. There are a lot of tools and stuff that I'll probably bring up as we go through this. But I spent quite a bit of time looking at how companies and fraud is being done within the name of your organization, right? And we all understand what the problem is, right? There's a ton of fraud out there. The idea is to protect your brand. There's a lot of interesting statistics out there. Here's some I pulled from the Javelin Strategy. Also some I pulled from the FTC website on how fraud itself is going up. The thing is fraud doesn't only affect you, but it also affects your third parties as well, right? So as brand protection use cases are seen from a, shall we say, IT or a security view, there are, in theory, 4 buckets, or from my perspective, 4 buckets. There may be different perspectives, which I'd be really interested to hear, right? But what I'm looking at here is more around the brand protection area, because I was looking at doing stuff around looking at attack surfaces and threat intelligence of the suppliers. But I realized that brand protection is really important for yourself, but also the brand of your suppliers to help you know what's going on, right? And brand protection is in a lot of our eyes a very slippery slope to get the right answer. There's a lot of data you need to help you get to the right answer or do the right situation, right? And some of this data isn't yours, right? You need some of the data from your suppliers to know what they're doing, where they're going. The brand of your suppliers may not be well known to the general public, right? But it may be well known within your sphere of influence, right? So in the medical device area where I'm currently working, we know a lot about our third-party suppliers and chipset makers. Their brand is well known to us and our competitors, and also in our industry, right? So a lot of this data is taken, we take it together, and as you'll see as we go through, is trying to get the answer on the other side, right? And that answer can mean from our side, informing our suppliers that there are sites out there. Maybe the sites were found by us, found by other people, but also maybe we fell about them by mistakes. There's an enforcement point and takedown point, right? The real brand protection professionals and us are working really hard. The problem is we, due to the size of the criminal activity out there, it's really hard for us to keep up to speed, right? A lot of the interesting stuff that's out there is around how this happens and what goes on. And and depending on who you talk to, and the data you see here is from one is from Allure, which is the 1,000 unique brands and firstly every week from the Allure data, but also the 730K unique phishing attacks on websites happening in Q3 is based on stuff from apwg.org, right, and trends in Q3 2021. The problem that a lot of us organizations have protecting our brand is we are both outgunned, meaning we don't have the amount of people out there. We are underfunded. It takes a lot of money to constantly try and have the right tools in place, and honestly, tired. If doing your job properly and trying to keep ahead of the wave is both exhausting and tiring, right? And I know that sounds the same, but being tired and exhausted are 2 things. I can push through being tired, but when I'm exhausted, you ask my wife, I'm kind of a pain in the neck. What's it look like? You've all seen the different phishing attacks and phishing sites, right? And the key to the story is most of them are not just names, right? This is a small company. Which one is the spoofed one? Is it the one on the left, the one on the right? A lot of systems out there would then go and look and say, okay, let's have a look at the end point of the URL. As you can see, this are URLs, right? The true one is on the left, right? And you can tell it's a short one, it's to the point. The other one is a lot longer and convoluted, right? But depending on the tooling that you're using, it could actually also not be caught by the issue, right? Same right now in the industry, the crypto brands are very hot to target. And the interesting thing is when you look at their websites, they could be a spoof website in general. Which one is the right one? Which one is the wrong one, right? You dig a little bit deeper. If you are looking for it based on URLs, you'd never catch the other one, right? So then you can tell, okay, now I know the real one. But you look at the URL, most times it wouldn't be caught. And right now it's coming up to tax season in the US, right? So, right, a lot of the government sites are being spoofed, right? Big time, right? The interesting thing is on most of the government websites, as you look at the government website and you go through the government website, it first comes up with a pop-up that says, this is an official government website and all the information, and then you get to the site. All of the hackers and the people looking to defraud or the government or phish use the exact same strategy that the other websites do, in some cases to the point of linking to the website and linking everything across. Now, the question is who does this affect, right? That's why we're all here, right? It affects everyone, right? No matter what. And, you know, over the last 30 days, these were the top attack areas, right? Scams based on the data we could get from OpenFish, right? You look carefully that finance is always been at the top of the chart, right? Cloud services and online has always been pretty high, and so is telecommunications. There lots and lots of T-Mobile sites come up every day. But the interesting looking at this data is also from you as a security professional, somebody trying to protect your brand. If you're in finance and you spend a lot of time, your financial organization also online or having a cloud service, you can start looking at these as helpful tips of where to go, right? For a lot of manufacturing will look at this and go and say, okay, a lot of transportation organizations are being hit. Let's sort of change our monitoring to look at our suppliers there, both around security and are they being phished, right? In some cases, we're seeing websites of big companies for transportation companies being set up to an email sent to anybody that is a so-called driver to log into this website. So in some third world countries, to try and hijack the trucks to know where they're going, right? As of last few days, right? These are the top brands that are being targeted based on some of the data I've been looking through Allure as I've been working with their platform and a few other platforms. The interesting thing about this one here is when I pulled this data, this was before OpenSea, the NFT website, had been having problems, and now we've seen that they've been hacked, right? The interesting is that we believe that brand will have gone up with a lot more of fake websites trying to lure people into that area to get the information and look at the information. I mean, what is it costing us? I mean, there are a lot of indirect and direct costs of the legacy approaches of online brand abuse, right? There's the loss of sales revenue because they've gone somewhere else. In some cases, there's a reputational damage, which I hate to say is really hard to put a cost on, right? In some cases, there's a huge increase in call center volume, and depending on how you pay for your calls at call centers, it could cost you also a lot more money. There's of course the customer dissatisfaction, and then customer churn. And back in the day when I worked at Adidas, it was quite interesting because periodically when we were hacked or there was a problem that there was a scamming site or a fraud site set up around Adidas products, and we would find it and we would contact the users were quite irate at us because we didn't catch it earlier. In some cases, the data we found there was their data, and we would actually push back on it. And then, of course, there's a time an effort to work on the investigation. There is out there several calculators that can try and give you the so-called amount of money that you would make, lose, save, prepare, help the organization. But in some cases, it's really hard to quantify. I have a hard time believing a lot of the calculators, and I think a lot of calculators give a good idea of the possibilities, but I think you can't quantify some of the information, and depending on the size of your brand, it could be even higher than what you see there, right? a lot of the information that you see on this page was pulled from the Javelin Strategy website, and it's kind of interesting. They have a really good amount of data around identity fraud loss around that topic as well. The thing is, and this goes towards both your supplier and yourself, right? How do we make progress in this battle? And it gets harder and harder every year, right? The way that we do things is very old-fashioned in a lot of the products that I was looking at over the last 2 to 3 weeks. That some of the old products do some wonderful stuff, but it's still not leveraging a lot of the new technology out there, the new ideas, right? If you look carefully at this here, right, we are losing ground, right? When I look at this is why is it this way? It's not black and white. It's not male, female. It's a lot of interesting things that go on there. The problem is we're missing so much information out there, right? And a lot of the legacy systems out there actually look at the same data time and time again, which makes it harder for them to get the other problems out there that we're seeing. And this is an interesting point. Some of the websites I saw pointed out that this was at 28 to 72%. I believe in some cases, depending on what it is, it could be around 40, 60, right? I don't think is as high as 72% being missed, right? When I was comparing a lot of the tools, but I'm also using a lot of the data out there. So I'll go through that. A lot of the things is knowing where to look, right? And the tooling out there, some do this really well, right? Some of it do it really badly, right? Some of it you can't get that data, right? And the new tooling out there tries to do all of this in different ways, right? But trying to take these as main places to look, right? Quite often it and also my history at both Novartis and Adidas, we found some really unusual referrals in our websites, which was quite interesting, that we could start seeing that our phishing websites were coming up in other places, right? The interesting thing about this is there are other places that these things show up and are hidden, you know, and it's really hard to try and get to these places, right? And in a lot of the cases for us, when we start looking at this and talking and finding other additional information out, talking to our suppliers and saying, have you looked at all these places to find it? And they've been quite surprised at the growing list. And don't get me wrong, a lot of manufacturing organizations that I work with, this is not their strong point. They in some cases believe that their website is the one and only website on the internet, until I've shown them, here's a lot of other places that look like you, sound like you, and feel like you, right? And then there's a level of trying to figure out. Plus, there's so much stuff coming out, right? It's a lot of automated websites being built, being registered, and then taken down really quickly. Here, you know, when we look at some of the old ways, what are they missing, right? If you look carefully on the left side, there's a domain monitoring alone. Taking the names, quite often they may miss some of the additional ones. What you're seeing on the PayPal side is a couple of tools that missed. I hate to say it, on those 5, they actually just picked up PayPal as a legit mode, but didn't pick up the other ones as fake ones. They did pick up from the right side, from the URLs, they did pick up a lot of the ones that weren't PayPal. But what they missed was the other ones that are PayPal phishing and fraud sites. What's very important about the AI side is that with natural language processing and computer vision, what this means is they are looking for a lot of the words and terminology that PayPal websites use. They look for a lot of the icons and images and compare them at the same time. And then at the same time, in some cases, looking for the subtle differences in the images that are getting past some of the other legacy stuff. And I try really hard not to put numbers on screens unless I'm 100% sure. But looking at this here, when I tested it, there was an 80% miss on PayPal on a very small section that I looked at, right, with some of the tools I was looking at. But at the same time, like I said, trying to inform our suppliers, I also made sure that I was informing some of the other suppliers of ours that we did find a lot of websites and fraud things that would have impacted our supply chain in the big picture, right? The other thing now is to start a lot of modernizing the approach, trying to figure out a clear way forward, trying to make sure that you have actionable stuff. The great thing about Allure Security and how I got into it is they actually had a free trial out there. So I spent a lot of time using it before I reached out to them to ask for understanding of their AI engine and a lot of their backends, and also how they sit in this. Also talk to Mark Monitor, Insights, Recorded Future, Dark Shadows around all their stuff on this. And everybody does a lot of this in a good way. And I think with a lot of the new startups that are coming out there, I see that there is a lot of synergies that you need to have a centralized platform to look at your brand, which I think nobody's really taken the time to look at. But taking all the different ways, taking the AI, the natural language learning, and the image recognition, pulling it together, and then getting a very high classification. The reason I like this UI is this UI is very actionable compared to a couple of other ones I used. What I do like is that a lot of them, when they said, and this is not only Allure, but a lot of the other ones, when they said they had a sureness of 85 and up, they were normally very much hitting that number. I only found a couple, I think out of 100 I looked, I think I only found 2 that actually weren't fake sites. They were actually legitimate sites. One was a legitimate site, and one was actually a site that had was somebody who was doing a mashup of different things. So the numbers have been really impressive to me, and looking at it. The difference in some of the sites is a lot of this is what do we do, right? And how do we do it? Taking a lot of the information around from different areas, from threat feeds, from domain and subdomain areas to start filling your data, right? This is not only Allure does this, a lot of the other people do this, right? What is this is you can also do it yourself with open source tooling, but it's a lot more harder, right? The interesting thing is pulling all this data together and then throwing on top of it the different tools to help you. What I do here right now is I also pull in from all of our suppliers, like I said earlier, and manufacturing partners, a lot of the data into the tooling itself, right? So I can have a look and see where they are on the risk scale for us as an organization. As we all know, there's a huge supply chain problem out there. It's probably going to get a little bit worse now with the Ukraine and Russia fiasco, which is putting it lightly, by the way. And I won't lie, and I didn't put any numbers on here. Over the last few days, I've seen in our monitoring of a lot of our third parties, a huge amount of traffic changing, right? And they are actually now having to take heed of what's going on there, recommending different tooling for them to look at to help them stay ahead of the curve, because we, as our brand, need them so that our brand can shine, right? But also we need them to be secure so that A, they're not used as a target to us, and they can continue supporting the business, right? There's also a whole bunch of new crop of abuse detection mitigation out there, right? A lot of the stuff that was being done in the past was having lawyers working, trying to get takedowns, or having students work on all that stuff. But takedowns aren't really the only way to do this. There's a few other vendors out there that do this quite well, right? But there's a little bit more offensive, you know, and because some of these websites are looking for data, give them wrong data, right? You're putting block lists in place and stuff like that. One of the things for us and what we liked about some of the tools we looked at was the ability to spoil the catch, right? The real fish will get in there because we can't keep those out. We're providing block lists to certain vendors out there. A lot of the other vendors that I also looked at are also providing additional information to people like WebSense or Microsoft to block and Google to block some of these in the wild because they're known about. But also at the same time, they're also sending decoy data in there, right? So if they're looking for a username, password to log in, and then it passes because it's not doing a check for a bank account data, and then it's asking for other data, they're putting this data in there. So they're getting a lot of dirty data, so they can't trust the data that they're getting. This is really good because it's making it harder for them, and it's making it the ROI on what they're doing is low, right? But it's also a benefit for us to keep them thinking, is that data the right data? Is that the wrong data? And then at the same time, you're trying to get takedowns in place, trying to get blocks put in place, and you're informing the other things. It's a huge benefit to help. Actually, maybe in some cases, them not trust the data, and some of your customers get protected, or your suppliers are actually not going to be as effective as they could be, right? Because the data isn't real data. And in some cases, some of the data that's been thrown up on the Pastebin-like sites has shown that it is the fake data that they use that has been up there, right? And there's a bit of frustration in some of the dark web back channels. It's quite a busy place. But taking the data to help protect your brand, you can still put the same data into your of your suppliers into that to help you A, inform them of security issues, and B, help them understand, because they may not be security savvy or even understand how this could impact them in a bigger picture, right? On the other side, it's the same of doing threat intel. You can understand how they look on the outside, right? And they may look strong, but this here could break their brand in a different way, right? So this is a good one. That's it in a nutshell. I'm sorry, because I did go a little bit different to what I was going originally, which was definitely focusing more on understanding the huge security. But what I saw was happening out there in the wild, I pivoted. So I apologize. But I hope this was interesting. Like I said, a lot of the companies out there are doing good jobs. Just look at which ones are trying to do it a lot better, right? A lot of the image and natural language stuff are changing the way of things being caught. So I can highly recommend looking deeper in that. And like let's say, any questions? Things look interesting, but both can change at the moment. So hopefully I'm within the 30 minutes.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation and for participating so effectively. And I will ask the audience that if they're having any question, they can ask you in the chat or in the QA session. And Jeff is with us, and he will be happy to answer all of your questions. So, Jeff, thank you so much, and we are looking forward to work again with you.
Thank you very much.
Stay safe. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, now we are moving forward to our next presentation, and now we are having a panel discussion on supply chain security and brand protection. And with us, we have Sophie Mole, and Senior Manager Healthcare Community Engagement at GS1. And then she has an overall 20 plus years of experience, and she is working with GS1 since August 2017. And with us, we also have Nuno. I will ask him to start his video. Okay, and he is a cybersecurity and privacy officer at Huawei, and he is Global Fortune 500 Chief Information Security Officer with expertise on cybersecurity strategies and programs, threat intelligence, cybercrime, and warfare, data privacy, and application security program. And then we have with us is Axel Hein. He's from Apirasol, and he's working with Apirasol since January 2010 as a managing director. Okay, so with this, we will welcome all of our panelists. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Yeah.
Hi. So how are you all?
Hi.
Fine, thank
Hi.
you.
That's great. Okay, so welcome to our panel discussion, and I will start with each of you you can start introducing yourself for 1 minute, and you are just having 1 minute. So we will start with Sophie. So Sophie, you can introduce yourself now.
Thank you. I'm Sophie. As you mentioned earlier, I'm working at GS1 in the GS1 healthcare side for roughly 4 or 5 years now. I'm in charge of the business development and strategic partnership over there, plus the engagement with the solution partners. Previously to that, I was involved in the fight against counterfeiting at the World Customs Organization. I've been involved in Cotecna inspection as well during a couple of years in fighting illicit trade department.
Okay, great. So Nuno.
Yes, hello. My name is Nuno. I'm the Cybersecurity and Privacy Officer for Huawei based in Portugal. So basically all the cybersecurity strategies and topics are under my responsibility, along with the accountability for privacy. And mostly my background is on telecommunications and cybersecurity and security engineering.
Okay, great. So Axel.
Hi, Serena, again. This is Axel Hein. I know I introduced myself earlier, but in case people join us just recently, I'm managing director with Apirasol based in Germany. We do software to track and map illicit supply chains in different industries, and we do also consulting, recommending further investigations to brand owners.
Okay, good. So we are having a mix of expertise from different industries, like we are having service providers to telecommunication brand and to an international standard development organization. So it would be an interesting panel discussion. So I will start with Sophie. Sophie, what are the main challenges in the healthcare sector supply chain?
Thank you for the question. So I wanted to start with this because I think the healthcare supply chain does have, the healthcare global context is still very moving. And if everyone knows the challenges, I think it's worth it to mention them again. If I will start with counterfeiting. Of course, you will say this is obvious, and in healthcare, this is something which has happened on a daily basis. But I'd like to share with you some numbers, scary figures that the Operation Stop 2, organized by WCO and Interpol last year during 5 months. Those numbers are super scary. I mean, we still have out of I would say, roughly 200 million pieces in seizures. You still get 150 million of medicine, and the rest would be on medical device and PPEs. I guess the pandemic has offered a boulevard for counterfeiters. And even if now we know that everything is competing and any kind of product suffered from that, I guess in the pharmaceutical sector and the healthcare sector, it's still very common, and it's still very scary. I guess the enforcement agencies do still have a long journey ahead of them, as well as the brand, the right orders to protect their brands. That would be the first challenge that I see. The second would be that the healthcare supply chain is super complex. Every step of the way, you can have mistakes, you can have breaks, you can have lack of links from the manufacturer side to the distributors, through the logistic providers, end up in the hospitals or the retail pharmacies. Internet is in the middle of all of that, so that's very complex. Healthcare is highly regulated. That's something that you all know. But the problem is that there's no non-harmonized approach on that. So if in Europe we are, in Europe and in US, we are kind of well set, the rest of the world is pretty bad. So I would say that that's another layer of complexity to the whole thing. And to link with what Nuno said maybe earlier, I think the pandemic has as well increase the digital health approach. And with the digital health, you have all these privacy and cybersecurity issues, because yes, we all have COVID passports. We had to use telemedicine. We still, maybe in some countries. And I guess we had to cope with that, but we are not enough set. We're not well prepared for that, not at all. And I think this is not clear. This is still not clear in the patients, in the people brain. So yeah, I guess this is the context. The context is very challenging, yeah, we still have a lot ahead of us and a long journey to do.
I agree. Thank you so much. And so we will now moving forward to Nuno. So Nuno, can you please tell us, how do organizations tend to connect supply chain security with brand protection? And what's the impact on brand's reputation if a chain is broken by supply chain?
Sure. So just to put everyone on the same page, I'm not a brand expert. I am a cybersecurity expert. So obviously I did some research. And what I found out curiously is that most chief marketing officers connect that a strong brand reputation starts with trust. And it's undeniable that we always connect trust with cybersecurity, at least in my view, in my world. And today, of course, a brand should stand for more than quality and reliability. Actually, what makes a good brand has changed in a profound way. So it's the word trust is very deeply connected with the let's say with the triad of cybersecurity, of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And if you see some major reports, and this obviously connects with the supply chain directly, around 60 to 63% of organizations stated last year that the breaches had an origin on the supply chain. So it's a very big number. And if you also connect this with some of global risk management surveys that state that reputation and brand, along with cyber, are now seen as the #1 in terms of risks to business, it's very clear that we can see a correlation between these two factors. And I can guide you through some examples. For instance, Capital One, you remember probably a breach that involved 100 million customers in US and Canada. They had around 150 million to pay in direct costs to the breach. But in terms of reputation of the brand, immediately was affected, and the share prices reduced by 6%. Again, another very high-profile cybersecurity incident with TalkTalk in the past years affected around 150,000 customers, and the brand was inevitably affected by that. And 100,000 customers left the company because they perceived there was a break in trust on the company and in the brand itself. So we can see that the majority of cybersecurity incidents are connected directly or indirectly with the third party and supply chain, And those incidents have a direct effect on the organization's brand and reputation. Also, I can give you more examples on, for instance, Forbes did a very nice study, and I invite you all to see this study, that around 46% of organizations had suffered reputational damage as a result of a data breach, and 19% of the organizations suffered reputation and brand damage as a result of a third-party security breach. So connecting all the dots, and apologies if I was a bit scattered on the bullet points, but connecting all the dots, we can clearly see that supply chain security is highly relevant to the reputation of the brand if there's a breach or a cybersecurity incident on the supply chain. And it's inevitable that it affects the trust on the organization and the perception towards the end users and the end customers. And also the other way around, the suppliers that supply to the end users and to the organizations also see their reputation affected. And I can clearly state that this is one of the major concerns for our company, for Huawei, and I believe that for many other companies also, which is a cybersecurity or a privacy incident not only has a regulatory damage, not only has a financial damage to the company, but it has mostly a reputational damage to the organization. So it's not only our end users, our customers, but our reputation as a supplier. So that's why we take supply chain security with the most criticality and respect. And of course, we do implement a lot of controls and measures to try to uphold to the maximum standards of security and privacy.
Great, thank you. And so now moving forward to Axel. So Axel, how can supply chain intelligence help assess this risk in supply chain?
Okay, thank you, Serena. I will try, I come from a different perspective, but I will try to draw some links to what Nuno was saying. When we say supply chain intelligence, for the ones that did not join the previous presentation, it means using intelligence data. So data that helps us investigate a supply chain that we cannot physically access. So this is the other side. This is not track and trace, or this is not when you are able to physically control your supply chain with any physical features, with any, I don't know, security cameras, access to facilities and so on. This is a situation where you're controlling people, criminals that have their own supply chains, illicit, and you of course cannot access them. So you use data that is open source to try to understand how they are operating. And we talked previously about using customs data that is public from 33 countries, and using also open source intelligence to map these supply chains. So trying to establish a point of contact with what Nuno was saying, the risks that this methodology can help you to identify could be something very general and something more specific. On a general note, it would be, for example, monitoring a product category, like, let's say, batteries for Huawei smartphones in a specific country, like Pakistan. Pakistan makes their customs data public. And one thing that is done in this industry is looking at how the product category batteries, generic batteries in general, is performing compared to the branded batteries, Huawei or Samsung. So you would look at the last 12 months and say, hey, there are more imports of unbranded products going to Pakistan batteries, and branded batteries with Huawei or Samsung are going down. And this, for a top brand, would be very strange. So it would be very strange that for Nike shoes, there's more unbranded products going to, I don't know, Ukraine than the branded products. This could be an indication that unbranded fakes are going there without brand to pass customs controls, and then they get branding in the last mile to avoid all risks. So this is on a very general perspective, looking at a country and trying to identify if there's a general issue for that country in that product category. On a more specific level, we monitor entities and products. So we monitor a company name, their ownership, and try to see, are they linked to counterfeiting? Maybe they're not visible, they're not so obvious with that, but their trading partner or their importer is more obvious. They're just bragging about the nice Apple fakes they have online. So sometimes it doesn't become obvious when you look at that target entity, it becomes obvious when you look at their trading partners. So counterfeiting is also something that is possible to detect with open source intelligence. Parallel trade as well. Parallel trade is even easier many times because it's a very simple question of saying this product is never exported from Vietnam to the US because it's produced in the Americas and should never go from Vietnam to the US or the other way around, for example. And the last case, and something very interesting, is what is called phantom shifts. So you have your third-party trusted supplier in Asia, for example, and they should produce only for you and supply to you and maybe some trusted partners. And open source intelligence can tell you they are producing, yeah, that 100% that is for you, but some extra 50%, some people call it phantom shifts, going to some other people. Sometimes these transactions are visible with open source data, with customs data, and it's very interesting to track them without the need of a physical investigation, just with data.
That's quite interesting. So I will move forward to Sophie. So Sophie, I have a question for you. How global standards can support supply chain security and particularly the healthcare supply chain?
Thank you. And I try to draw lines with what has been said before, because yeah, this is a panel discussion, so we should be able to kind of build on what the others, my other colleagues are saying. And maybe I will go out of healthcare for a minute. Standards are everywhere. And you all certainly do see the barcodes on each and every product, and you might not know that these are GS1 standards. And the GS1 standards create a common foundation for business by uniquely identifying, and that's one of our what we do with several standards on the product, for instance, the global trade identification number, on allocation, manufacturer side, for instance, with the global location number. And I won't explain all the acronyms of GS1, but just to give you a flavor of what it is about. If we talk about supply chain, and if we go in the transport and logistics way, you get the pallet or the container, and these pallet or containers are identified with a unique serial shipping container code, SSCC, and all of that is under the identification standards of the global system of GS1, and that's the unique identification that you could do on each and every product. Once that is done, you need to capture the information, and I will make the link with what you were saying, Axel. You need to have the data somewhere. You need to capture that, and most importantly, the relevant data. And then you will have another bench of standards for that. The GS1 data matrix, if we're talking about secondary packaging for pharmaceutical products. You will have the RFID that you see if you go in a clothes shop, for instance. And all of that is important because those standards can be machine readable through a scanner or through another mechanism. Finally, you will need to through this foundation, the sharing would be done automatically thanks to the two precedents, so the two previous one, the identification and the capturing. And you would be able to share all along the supply chain the information about those products, about those locations, about those assets, and in the healthcare landscape, about patients as well. And that will be done on, for instance, if you talk about master data, that will be done through the GDSN, so the Global Data Synchronization Network. You could do that for transactional data, and you could do that for event data. That being said, and I would do a long story short, all of those standards can be streamlined to improve the supply chain efficiency. Why is that? Because all those standards are open and interoperable. This means that all along the supply chain in all the countries, you will be able to know exactly where the product is and what is in there. And that is valid for pharma or other, I mean, GS1 is not only about healthcare, this is about retail, food and beverage, transport and logistics. I mean, UA, you have a pharma, you have in UA the pharma branch, but yeah, there are other things as well that are other products and other products category that are submitted to the standards. So that is for the supply chain. And if we draw the parallel with the healthcare and with what I said before regarding digital health, to link that with again, cybersecurity and privacy, these standards are all ISO standards, and we do develop as well, and we do look, and we are partnering with other health information technology organization in order to get these standards really compliant and available for the health informatics as well. So that means that in the digital health space, we could retrieve those standards in order to make sure that on one hand, the right patient has the right dose at the right moment at a sustainable cost, and that's everything is traceability, and it's important. But on the health side, that all the data are really shared in an unambiguous way, as well as very confidential. So that's where I see that the GS1 global system of standards could help in this approach and in what we are discussing today.
That's great, and that's very informative. And I would like to have your point, Nuno, on cyber resilience in supply chain.
Sure. So trying to open more the discussion here and to get some intervention also from our attendees, I think it's fairly simple to have a perception of, if you're an organization and you have suppliers, especially, of course, critical suppliers for core parts of your business, you do want suppliers that you perceive or confirm that they are cyber resilient very easily. Why? Because if we go a bit back and we try to define what cyber resilience is basically try to resist to cyber attacks, to their digital ecosystem, and if attacked, to promptly recover from those attacks and to continue the operations. So you do want in your critical supply chain partners that can do this for you, that they can sustain an attack, and if they are attacked, they can recover very quickly because your operations are directly affected. It's as simple as that. So cyber resilience in the supply chain has a direct impact on your brand and you as a company, because of course, if you rely, and again, most people that are not on the cybersphere do not clearly perceive the impact on an attack on the supply chain and how that can impact the organization. So cyber resilience is really paramount on this topic. You can clearly connect a direct relationship between the two of them. Our case, and of course, it's always good to give practical examples. That's why we are here in the panel, to bring our expertise and our day-to-day operations in Huawei. of course, as you know, we are suppliers of pretty much all industries: car industry, telecom industry, energy industry, banking industry, you name it. We have pretty much everything in terms of ICT. And that's our goal, to have pretty much everything on ICT. So we are suppliers of pretty much 500 of the top global 500, Fortune 500 companies, which makes us suppliers of critical infrastructures, for instance. So it is critical that these suppliers, for instance, Huawei, have an end-to-end security program and security chain assessment on everything that we provide to our customers, because we understand that we are critical for their business. So cyber resilience is embedded from the day zero in our products, in our processes, and connecting this with standards. We tend to make a big effort in being compliant with all the standards, not only because it's a requirement, but because it's an assurance that we can give to the organizations. It's an independent assurance body that can attest that, yes, Huawei is certified against common criteria, ISO 2001, GSMA network equipment security assurance scheme. So we can provide this assurance, and we can, at minimum, provide some kind of comfort that, yes, we are ready to be cyber resilient and to help you being also a cyber resilient organization. An organization is pretty much made of third parties. If you think about it, your servers are not from your organization. Your cloud is not from your organization. Your laptops are not from your organization. The operating system on your laptops are not from your organization. The SCADA systems are not from your organization. So you heavily rely on third parties. So your third parties need to be cyber resilient in order to make you cyber resilient. And this is the connection flow that I make between these two topics.
Okay, great. So can you hear me all? Okay. So at the end, I would just like to have a quick point of view of from all of you on the importance of collaboration of supply chain stakeholders, and then we will be wrapping up the panel discussion with this. Okay, so we will start with Axel.
Yeah, from my side, collaboration, I see it from an investigations of IP issues and brand protection issues. The collaboration comes when you're talking to a brand protection manager and highlighting a possibly infringing supply chain, and there's doubts they need to clarify. They need to talk to supply chain people to confirm, hey, do we really ship from this country to this other country? And maybe there's also collaboration with people from intellectual property saying, hey, do we really have this brand registered in this country, or did we lose rights? So it's a very collaborative approach where you involve intellectual property people, supply chain, your third party. So knowing who are your third party suppliers, and that's a very collaborative approach to doing investigations.
So Sophie.
So as an international standard development organization, for us, in order to increase and enhance the efficiency of the supply chain, I mean, to support, we do not protect it per se, but to support it, we do need to have everybody around the table. We do need to have, to speak the same language. That's what the GS1 standards try to do, but we need to, the manufacturers, the solution providers, the regulatory authorities, the sectoral association, the in healthcare providers. I mean, everybody from a end-to-end supply chain perspective need to sit at the table, understand each other constraints or bottlenecks, or try really to exchange the best practices too. We are a community of users. We are users driven. So this is not about me or the staff of GS1 waking up in the morning and say, hey, yeah, let's create a new standard. No, this is really driven by the industry and the needs of the industry. And of course, we do collaborate with other global organizations, the Standards One, the Health Information Technologies one, the donor organization, and a lot of others, because yeah, ultimately this is really to bring a common language to all of those parties in healthcare, because I'm working in healthcare to enhance patient safety. This is really to resonate, and that should resonate in each every one of us, because counterfeiting is still very present. If we think a little bit of the pandemic that has been brutal, if you think of the vaccine, the COVID vaccines, again, this is another layer. If you think of Africa, the traceability over there is even not in place. I mean, that starts, but that's a long journey again ahead of us. So all of this is really, and again, this is maybe hidden, because this is not something that, this is not about a customs or a police investigation or a risk assessment or something that you would do at the border. This is really something that should be done ahead, upstream, and still not super clear, I guess, in a lot of people's brains and philosophy. But for us, I mean, collaboration is key, and that's what we try to do every day.
That's great, and that's quite interesting. And Nuno, what do you think about this?
I will be very pragmatic and say that nowadays one of the core things is collaboration and intelligence sharing. Like Axel said, there's a lot of intelligence that comes from data. So the old way of thinking on silos, that needs to be eradicated, that needs to be more proactive collaboration. And it's really a matter of the supply chain is your partner, so it needs to exist a very efficient collaboration and partnership, and eradicate that idea of that's my supplier, I'll need to impose this contract and these technical organizational measures or these controls and requirements. No, it's a partnership, and there's a lot of intelligence to be shared that makes the relationship much more effective.
Okay, that's great. So thank you so much to all of you. So as we all know that the supply chain security and brand protection is an important key to secure our brand. So the conclusion of this panel discussion is, yes, we need to interact and collaborate, and as the collaboration is the key to enhance the supply chain. Okay, so thank you so much to all of you, and it has been a wonderful panel discussion with all of you, and I hope everyone from the audience have enjoyed the session and learned so many new points from different industries. So I will ask the audience that if someone is having any questions, they can ask us in the QA or in the chat session, and our panelists are here to answer all the questions. So thank you so much, Sophie, Axel, and Nuno, for your time.
Thank you.
And
Bye-bye.
bye. Have a nice day, and thank you for your wonderful
Thank you.
participation. Bye. Have a
Thank
nice day.
you.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all have enjoyed this panel discussion, and with this has been a wonderful event, and we are reached at the end of this conference. I have enjoyed listening to the talks of our valued keynote speakers, and especially the panel discussion, and it's a privilege and honor to be entrusted with such an undertaking at a gathering of such eminent people from different parts of the world. So thank you so much to our esteemed presenters and their valuable point of view. Okay, so no, we have reached at the end of our conference. So I would like to thank, on behalf of Platinum Global Solution, I would like to thank all the stakeholders, including speakers, sponsor, and delegates, without whom this webinar would not have been possible. So I extend my best wishes to all of you, and we will be back with novel themes in coming month in the field of brand protection and supply chain. Have a nice day. Stay safe.